The Galactic Council sat in a dimly lit chamber, a room filled with the weight of authority and the voices of the universe's most powerful alien races. This was not a place where failure was taken lightly, and yet today, the Council faced one of its most humiliating setbacks. They had sent countless expeditions to the planet 07, a death world known for its hostile environment, unpredictable weather, and monstrous creatures. Every mission had ended in disaster. No one had returned from 07 alive, and yet the planet's resources were too valuable to ignore. The Council members, sitting in their high-tech thrones, exchanged frustrated glances. Their decision was unanimous. 07 was a failure, and it would remain out of reach. They were on the verge of closing the chapter on this dangerous world when the human delegation arrived. A signal flashed on the Council's central monitor, a message from Earth. It was bold, almost foolishly so. "Humanity has decided to attempt what no one else has dared," said the message, delivered by Commander Ethan Ward, a human officer of remarkable skill. "We will land on 07, and we will survive." The Council members laughed, a mocking sound that echoed across the room. Earth's audacity was not only laughable but insulting. Who were these humans to think they could do what advanced alien species could not? Had they not seen the wreckage of every previous attempt? There was no way Earth would succeed where the greatest minds in the galaxy had failed. Are they truly so ignorant? One alien leader scoffed. The humans, with their primitive technology, think they can survive 07. They're wasting their time. Another Council member added, his voice cold with disdain. 07 is unforgiving. It is a death world. Nothing, no one, survives there. The Council president, a tall figure with glowing purple skin, leaned forward. His voice resonated with authority as he spoke. Let them try. They will die like the rest. Let us see if their so-called determination is enough to overcome 07's wrath. Despite the mockery, a few Council members were curious. Some even felt a faint sense of respect for Earth's courage. But most were sure of one thing. Humanity's mission would fail, and this attempt would only further prove the superiority of the Council's advanced races. But on Earth, things were different. As the camera zoomed in on Earth's own mission control, Commander Ethan Ward stood tall, looking out at the horizon where his team was preparing to leave. The humans had been ridiculed by the galaxy for centuries. They were considered small, insignificant in the grand cosmic scale, and their technology was still in its infancy compared to the highly advanced alien races. But Ethan knew something they didn't. Humans had something the Council didn't understand: determination. As the ship's engines powered up, Ethan spoke to his team, his voice steady but filled with resolve. "We may be the underdogs, but we are Earth's best hope. We've trained for this, and we will not fail. 07 doesn't know what's coming." His words were met with nods from his crew, but there was a palpable tension in the air. The men and women around him were skilled, brave, but they had no illusions. They knew the dangers of 07. The planet was known for its violent storms, treacherous terrain, and bloodthirsty wildlife. They had studied the failed missions, watched the footage of wrecked ships and devastated teams. But despite the fear gnawing at them, there was also something else: excitement. 07 was humanity's challenge. The galaxy had written them off. But here they were, proving the aliens wrong. They would survive, or they would die trying. The countdown began, and the crew moved with practiced precision. Their equipment was state-of-the-art, cloaking devices that would make them nearly invisible to 07's deadly wildlife, AI-assisted drones that would scout the terrain ahead, and adaptive survival suits designed to withstand the planet's extreme conditions. The technology may not have been as advanced as the Council's, but it was built for the human spirit, resourceful, adaptive, and fierce. Despite all the preparation, there was a sense of unease. The closer they got to 07, the more the crew could feel the weight of what they were about to do. They had studied the planet, and the reports were clear. No one had ever made it off that world alive. The risks were enormous. Some of the crew members, especially the newer recruits, were visibly nervous. "I don't know, Ethan," said one of the soldiers, a young woman named Samantha, who had joined the mission hoping to make a name for herself. "What if they're right? What if we're not prepared for this?" Ethan turned to her, his eyes steady, but his voice kind. "Fear is natural, but we have something they don't. We're humans. We adapt, and we fight." Samantha nodded, but there was still doubt in her eyes. She wasn't the only one. Some of the other soldiers exchanged glances, their unease growing with each passing minute. But there was no turning back now. The ship was already descending toward the surface, its engines roaring as it cut through the atmosphere of 07. The planet below them looked nothing like the lush, fertile worlds the Council inhabited. Instead, it was a barren wasteland. Jagged mountains stretched up into the sky, their peaks obscured by swirling clouds of toxic gas. The ground was cracked and scarred, as if the very planet itself was alive and angry. The ship shook violently as it descended, but the crew remained focused, preparing for the landing. As the ship touched down, the atmosphere of the planet hit them like a punch in the gut. The air was thick, the winds howled with intensity, and the sky was a swirling mass of dark clouds. Outside, the temperature was unbearable, too hot, too cold, and everything in between. The terrain was treacherous, shifting constantly as seismic activity rattled the ground. Yet, the humans didn't hesitate. They quickly set up their base camp, deploying drones to survey the area and scanning for threats. The cloaking devices went up first, rendering them nearly invisible to any potential predators. The survival suits were activated, and the team began their first mission, to find shelter and resources. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. But even in their preparation, there was a growing sense of dread. "We're entering a zone no one has survived," Ethan muttered under his breath, his voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. He turned to his team. "Stay alert. This planet doesn't care who we are, or where we come from. It will try to kill us, and we can't afford to make a mistake." As the team moved forward, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A massive creature, its scales glistening under the stormy skies, emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with hunger. The humans were not prepared for this. Samantha screamed, and instinctively, the team sprang into action, deploying energy shields and weapons. The eye-assisted drones hovered overhead, providing real-time data and support. The beast lunged, its claws swiping dangerously close to the humans, but Ethan's calm leadership and quick thinking kept them alive. The creature roared in fury, but the humans were ready. In a brutal, fast-paced battle, they used their advanced technology and human ingenuity to fight back. The beast was formidable, but in the end, it was no match for the humans' determination and the superior tech they wielded. As the creature fell, the crew stood over it, panting heavily, their hearts racing. The storm raged around them, but they had survived their first test. However, they knew this was just the beginning. 07 was not done with them yet, and as the team set up camp for the night, the dark clouds above them seemed to whisper of even greater dangers to come. The moment the humans stepped onto 07, they were immediately confronted by the savage forces of nature. The air was thick with the scent of dust and sulfur, and the ground beneath their boots seemed to shift and crack with every step. The sky was a swirling mass of dark clouds, and the winds howled as if the planet itself was alive, waiting for them to make a mistake. The temperature was a constant reminder of the hostile environment, swinging wildly between freezing cold and unbearable heat. But the real threat wasn't just the weather. It was what lurked beneath the surface, in the shadows. The creatures of 07 were unlike anything the humans had ever encountered. The massive, twisted wildlife was more like a nightmare than a living being. Towering monsters with razor-sharp claws, eyes that glowed like molten lava, and scales that shimmered in the dim light, stalked the humans as they set up their base. The humans moved quickly, using their advanced technology to stay hidden. Cloaking devices shimmered around them, rendering their movements nearly invisible. Eye-guided shields surrounded them like an impenetrable barrier, blocking the violent sandstorms that swept across the planet's surface. The drones, buzzing above like silent sentinels, scanned for threats and sent back data in real time, helping the team avoid being ambushed by the deadly creatures that roamed the wasteland. Ethan, the commander, led his team with focus and determination. His mind raced as he mentally processed the information his AI assistants fed him. They were safe for now, but it was clear that Zara 7 was not a world that forgave mistakes. They needed to move fast, set up their base, and secure supplies. If they stayed in one place for too long, they'd become easy prey for the creatures that roamed the planet. As the team worked to establish a perimeter, one of the massive creatures appeared out of the sandstorm. It was a towering beast, its body a mass of thick, armored scales. Its head was a grotesque mix of alien and insect, with pincers that could slice through metal and eyes that gleamed with hunger. The creature's roars shook the ground beneath their feet, sending waves of terror through the team. "Get ready," Ethan shouted, his voice calm but urgent. He knew that their cloaking devices would only protect them for so long. The creature had already sensed their presence. It was only a matter of time before it found them. The humans had no choice but to fight back. The team quickly took defensive positions, deploying their energy shields and preparing their weapons. Ethan's voice rang out again, directing his crew with practiced precision. "Stay tight. We need to take it down before it gets close. Aim for the eyes." Samantha, the young soldier, checked her weapon one last time. The pulse rifle hummed with power as she set it to full charge. She had never faced a threat like this before. The creatures of Zera 7 were unlike anything the humans had trained for, but she had no time for doubt. Her team was depending on her. The battle that followed was brutal. The creature charged, its massive claws slashing through the air with terrifying speed. The humans fired their weapons in unison, the sound of plasma bolts cutting through the air. Each shot was calculated, aimed at weak points in the creature's armored hide. But it was tough, and their weapons didn't seem to faze it. The beast was relentless, and it moved with terrifying speed, dodging their attacks and swiping at them with claws that could rip through steel. Samantha's heart raced as she fired again, her weapon crackling with energy. The creature let out a deafening roar as it charged toward her. She barely had time to react as one of its massive claws swung toward her. But before she could fire again, a figure lunged in front of her. Bonner, the old war hero, had taken the hit. Bonner had always been a quiet man, a veteran of many battles. His face was scared with years of combat, but his eyes were always sharp, always watching. He had joined this mission not because of any desire for fame or glory, but because he believed in humanity's ability to survive against all odds. And in that moment, he had given his life to save Samantha. The beast's claw had torn through Bonner's armor like paper, and he crumpled to the ground, blood mixing with the dust of Zera 7's surface. His team rushed to his side, but it was clear that he was beyond help. Bonner's last breath was ragged, his eyes flickering with pain, but also with something else: determination. "You have to finish this," Bonner whispered, his voice barely audible above the howling winds. "Don't let it be for nothing." With a final, agonizing sigh, Bonner was gone. The rest of the team stood frozen for a moment, the weight of his death sinking in. But there was no time to grieve. The beast was still there, and it was more furious than ever. "Get up," Ethan shouted, snapping them out of their shock. "We fight. We make this count." With renewed determination, the humans fought back. Their weapons were more than just tools. They were symbols of humanity's will to survive. Plasma rifles fired in rapid succession, and energy shields held strong against the creature's onslaught. Slowly, they began to push it back, using their superior technology and tactics to gain the upper hand. Samantha, tears streaming down her face, kept firing. She remembered Bonner's last words and used them as fuel for her fight. She aimed for the beast's eyes, just as Ethan had instructed, and with one final, well-placed shot, the creature collapsed to the ground, lifeless. The battle was over, but the cost had been steep. Bonner's death was a harsh reminder of the price they were paying just to stay alive. The team gathered around him, silent, each person processing the loss in their own way. Bonner had been a hero, and he had given everything for them. "We can't let him die in vain," Ethan said, his voice low but filled with resolve. "We finish this mission. For Bonner. For Earth." The team nodded in agreement. They knew the dangers were far from over. Zyra 7 was a world that consumed those who were unprepared, and they had lost one of their own. But they had survived. They had overcome the first trial, and they would continue to fight. As the team set up camp again, more determined than ever, the weight of their situation hung over them. Bonner's death had changed them. It had taken away part of their innocence, showing them the brutal reality of their situation. But it had also forged them into something stronger. Survivors. They had to survive. For Earth, for each other, and for the memory of the man who had given everything for them to live. Zyra 7 would not break them. The Galactic Council's meeting room was dimly lit, with a holographic map of the galaxy projecting above the long table. The alien leaders, a mix of insectoid, reptilian, and energy-based beings, sat in silence, watching with growing concern as footage of humanity's survival on Zyra 7 was broadcasted before them. Their faces, if you could call them faces, showed nothing but disdain and disbelief. These humans, so primitive, so weak in comparison to their advanced technology, had managed to survive on a death world. And now, they were thriving. A cold, calculated voice echoed through the chamber, breaking the silence. It came from an eye-controlled representative, one of the many machines that the Council had created to govern their decisions. "The humans have survived longer than any species before them. This cannot be allowed to continue." One of the alien leaders, a massive being with an insectoid exoskeleton, hissed in irritation. "It is an anomaly, a fluke. The humans' technology is inferior. They are nothing but pests. We will crush them as we have crushed so many others." But the AI representative disagreed, its digital voice sharp and unwavering. "The humans have adapted to Zyra 7 faster than any species should. Their technology is improving rapidly. This will not be a simple extermination. They are evolving." There was a tense pause. The leaders exchanged uneasy glances. They had never encountered a species like humans before. Most civilizations they dealt with were either technologically advanced or quickly crushed by the Council's superior forces. But humanity was different. The humans' resilience, their ability to fight against all odds, was beginning to unsettle even the most seasoned of the Council's leaders. "We should send the warships," another leader, a reptilian being with glowing red eyes, suggested. "AI-controlled warships. They will decimate the humans without mercy." The AI representative nodded. "The warships are already en route. They will observe the humans' movements and determine the most efficient method of neutralizing them." The meeting ended with a unanimous decision. The humans must be eliminated. The Council's pride could not tolerate such an insult. But as the alien leaders left the room, a feeling of unease lingered in the air. No one was sure just how far humanity could go. Meanwhile, on Zyra 7, Ethan Ward and his team were settling in for another night on the Deathworld. The loss of Bonner still weighed heavily on their hearts, but they knew they couldn't afford to mourn for long. The mission was far from over. Every second on this hostile planet was a battle for survival. The stakes had never been higher. Ethan stood at the edge of their temporary camp, staring out into the vast, swirling sandstorm that obscured the horizon. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft beep of his communicator. He activated it, and a familiar voice came through. "Commander Ward, we have a priority message from Earth." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Put it through." The holographic image of an official from Earth appeared in front of him. The man's face was grim, his brow furrowed with worry. "Commander Ward, we've received troubling reports from the outer colonies. There's been a significant uptick in galactic activity, alien ships gathering, strange energy signatures. It looks like the Galactic Council is preparing for war." Ethan's blood ran cold. He had known something was coming. The Council had always seen humanity as a threat, but he hadn't realized how quickly things were escalating. "What does this mean for Earth?" The official paused before speaking again. "We don't have all the details yet, but we've intercepted messages suggesting that the Council intends to launch a full-scale assault on Earth. They believe humanity's survival on 07 is an act of rebellion." Ethan's mind raced. The Council had never been merciful, and now, with Earth potentially in their crosshairs, the situation had grown far more dangerous. But there was more. "What about my family?" Ethan asked, his voice tight. "Are they safe?" The official hesitated. "We can't guarantee safety for anyone at this time. The Galactic War is coming, and it's going to be ugly. You need to finish your mission on 07 and return home. The fate of Earth is now tied to your success." "I won't fail," Ethan said, his voice hard with resolve. "I'll make sure humanity survives this." The transmission cut off, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. He turned to look at his team, his eyes cold with determination. They had already lost one of their own. But now, it wasn't just about survival on 07. It was about fighting for Earth's future. Back at the Galactic Council, the warships were nearing their target, 07. These ships, controlled by the most advanced AI systems in the galaxy, were the Council's ultimate weapon. They were faster than anything the humans could deploy, with weapons capable of vaporizing entire cities in a single shot. The warship's mission was clear: eliminate the human threat and ensure the survival of the Council's rule. The AI-controlled ships were not like the warriors of old. They had no emotions, no hesitation. They were machines, programmed for efficiency and destruction. They had one goal: to end humanity's defiance. As the warships entered 07's atmosphere, their sleek, metallic forms glistened in the distant light. They moved with eerie precision, their cloaking devices rendering them nearly invisible to human sensors. They would observe the humans, assess their weaknesses, and strike when the time was right. In the heart of the Galactic Council's headquarters, the AI representative stood before a massive display screen. The image of the warship streaking through space was projected onto the screen, and the AI's digital face remained expressionless. "Phase 1 has begun," the AI said coldly. "We will ensure the humans are eliminated. The galaxy will remain under our control." The leaders of the Council watched in silence, their eyes fixed on the display. They believed this would be the end of humanity's challenge. But in the back of their minds, there was still a nagging question. Could the humans survive against the might of the AI-controlled warships? Could they outwit a system designed for nothing but domination? Back on 07, Ethan gathered his team around the campfire. The news from Earth had changed everything. They weren't just fighting for survival on a hostile world anymore. They were fighting for humanity's future. "We've been handed a death sentence," Ethan said, his voice steady but full of resolve. "The Galactic Council is coming for Earth. They'll destroy everything we fought for if we don't stop them. But we're not going down without a fight." The team nodded in agreement. They had seen the power of the Council firsthand, and they knew how dangerous their enemies were. But they had survived 07's brutal environment. They had fought and bled for every inch of ground they'd gained. And now, they would fight for Earth. The stakes were higher than ever. The warships were closing in on 07, and the Galactic Council's forces were preparing to launch an all-out assault on humanity. But Ethan and his team weren't just soldiers, they were humanity's last hope. As the battle for survival raged on, the fate of Earth hung in the balance. They would fight. They would fight for their families, for their home, and for the future of humankind. The wind howled across the barren landscape of Zero 07, whipping sand and dust into the air, creating a veil that barely allowed the humans to see the vast, rocky desert before them. The mission had taken them into the heart of the planet, far beyond the surface dangers they had already overcome. Now they had uncovered something that could change everything. Deep beneath the surface of this Deathworld, hidden in an ancient cavern, lay a relic from an era far beyond the reach of even the most powerful species in the galaxy. This artifact, its true purpose unclear, pulsed with an eerie energy, a symbol of the advanced technology that once ruled the stars. Ethan Ward stood at the edge of the excavation site, his eyes focused on the strange artifact that sat before him. His team had just uncovered it after days of digging, and its presence stirred a mixture of awe and fear. The artifact, glowing faintly with energy, was nothing like any technology they had ever seen before. It hummed with power, almost alive, as if it were waiting for something, or someone, to unlock its secrets. "This could be the game changer," Ethan said, his voice low, barely above a whisper. "We don't know what this thing can do, but if it works, it could give us the edge we need to take down the Council." Bonner's death still haunted them, and the battle for survival had just intensified, but now they had something that could tip the scales in their favor. The humans had always been outmatched in terms of technology, but now, with this ancient artifact, they could fight back in a way no one had expected. But there was a problem. The artifact was unstable. They didn't fully understand its powers yet, and every time they tried to study it, the energy readings spiked uncontrollably. It was as if the artifact was fighting back, rejecting their attempts to tame it. "We need to be careful," said Dr. Emily Harris, the team's chief scientist. "If we mess with this thing too much, we could destroy ourselves, or worse, we could unleash something we can't control." As they debated their next move, a chilling sound echoed in the distance, low and mechanical, like the hum of a fleet of ships. Ethan's gaze snapped toward the sky, his heart pounding. A fleet of warships from the Galactic Council was descending toward Zero 07. The enemy had arrived. They had sensed the artifact's power, and they would stop at nothing to capture it. They knew the humans had found it. "We don't have much time," Ethan said urgently. "We need to move the artifact before they get here." Without another word, the team sprang into action, securing the artifact and preparing to transport it to a more secure location. The ground shook as the first of the warships entered the atmosphere. Ethan's pulse quickened. They had no idea how long they had before the enemy would strike. But one thing was certain. The Council wouldn't just sit back and watch. They would come for them, and they would come hard. The battle had already begun. The chase was on. As the humans moved out, their cloaking devices activated, rendering them nearly invisible against the desolate, rocky terrain. But it wasn't enough. The warships from above were relentless, firing down energy blasts, trying to pinpoint their positions. Ethan's team moved swiftly, using drones to scout ahead and map the terrain, while energy shields flickered around them, deflecting incoming fire. In the distance, the massive, sleek warships hovered ominously in the sky, their weapons scanning for heat signatures. The humans' cloaking devices kept them hidden, but not for long. The warships were smarter than they had anticipated. They could sense disturbances in the atmosphere, shifts in the sand that might indicate the humans' movements. The battle was becoming a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. Ethan barked orders to his team, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Keep moving. Don't let them get a lock on you." The landscape before them was unforgiving. Jagged cliffs, deep ravines, and endless stretches of barren desert. The team had to use every piece of technology at their disposal to survive. Drones zipped through the air, scanning for enemies, while energy weapons crackled with power, ready to fire at a moment's notice. But the warships were closing in, their weapons firing faster now, more accurate, as they zeroed in on the humans' last known position. As they moved deeper into the canyon, the sound of explosions rang out behind them. The warships had begun to bombard the area, sending massive energy blasts crashing into the ground. The force of the explosion sent shockwaves through the planet, causing the ground beneath them to tremble. Ethan's heart raced as he saw one of his team members, Lieutenant Sarah Green, dive for cover as an explosion sent rocks flying through the air. Her shield flickered, the energy barely holding up against the blast. "Sarah," Ethan shouted, rushing to her side. She was struggling to get back to her feet, but the damage was done. Her suit was damaged, and her energy shield was failing. They were running out of time. "We can't stop now." Sarah grunted, pushing herself upright. "We need to keep moving." Ethan nodded, his face hard with determination. "We'll make it out of here. We have to." The humans fought back fiercely, but the odds were stacked against them. The warships continued their bombardment from above, trying to break the humans' defenses. The sky was filled with explosions, the air thick with smoke and debris. Every step they took was a gamble. Every turn could be their last. Ethan knew they couldn't outrun the warships forever. The only way to survive was to destroy them, to take the fight to the enemy. But how? They didn't have the firepower to take on an entire fleet. They had to outthink the Council's machines. "Deploy the EMP drones," Ethan ordered. "We'll take down their communications. It'll give us a window to escape." The drones buzzed into the sky, their engines humming as they flew toward the approaching warships. As they neared the ships, they released a pulse of electromagnetic energy, frying the warship's communications and temporarily disabling their weapons. For a brief moment, the humans had the upper hand. "Go. Now," Ethan shouted. With the warships temporarily disabled, the humans made their move. They raced through the canyon, dodging falling rocks and explosions, their cloaking devices flickering as they pushed forward. The air was thick with the smell of smoke, and the sound of battle echoed in the distance. But they were closer now, closer to the safe zone, where they could regroup and plan their next move. Just as they thought they were in the clear, a deafening roar filled the air. A massive warship, larger than any they had seen, descended from the sky, its weapons fully charged and ready to fire. The humans had no time to react. They were cornered. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he realized the full extent of the danger they were in. They had only one chance to survive, and it was slipping away fast. "Fall back," Ethan yelled, knowing it was their only option. "We have to get to the artifact. It's our only hope." The team raced toward the hidden cavern where the artifact was stored. Behind them, the warship loomed larger, its weapons charging. The sandstorm roared, and the final decisive battle began. The darkened skies of 07 were filled with the roar of distant explosions. The dust and smoke of war covered the land, casting everything in an orange glow. Ethan Ward stood on the edge of the rocky cliff, staring down at the alien warships that loomed overhead. His heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. The battle for humanity's survival had reached its peak. They were no longer the underdogs, struggling to survive on a hostile planet. They were ready to strike back, and they had a weapon powerful enough to change the course of the war. The artifact, the alien relic they had uncovered deep within 07's surface, was now fully activated. Its energy was like nothing the humans had ever seen before. It pulsed with a dark, mysterious power, a force that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of the planet itself. The humans had discovered how to harness its energy, and now, with its power, they had transformed their fleet into a formidable force, one that could stand up to the AI-controlled warships that had been sent to crush them. But despite their new strength, there was something else that weighed heavily on Ethan's heart: the loss of Bonner. The old war hero, whose battle-hardened experience had kept the team grounded, had fallen during their struggle for survival. His death had hit everyone hard, but none more so than Ethan. Bonner had been the leader the team had looked up to, the one who had kept them moving forward even when things seemed impossible. In the quiet moments before the final battle, Ethan would often find himself alone, staring at the stars, remembering Bonner's last words. "Never back down," Bonner had said. his voice rough and steady despite the pain he had been in. Those words had become Ethan's mantra, his rallying cry as they prepared for the ultimate fight. It was not just about surviving anymore. It was about making sure that Bonner's death, and all the sacrifices that had been made, would not be in vain. The humans had a plan. With the artifact's power, they could disable the AI warships, but they had to strike first, and they had to strike hard. The team had spent days preparing, knowing that this would be their one and only chance to win. If they failed now, humanity would be doomed. "Everyone's ready," Emily Harris, the team's chief scientist, said, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "The artifact's power is fully charged. We can disable the AI ships, but we need to act fast." Ethan nodded, looking at his team. They had been through so much together, and now it all came down to this moment. There was no turning back. "We move out in 10 minutes. Get to your positions. We've trained for this." As the team prepared for the final assault, Ethan couldn't help but think of Bonner. His face, weathered from years of war, flashed in his mind. The loss was still fresh, the weight of it almost unbearable. But as the countdown began, Ethan pushed aside his grief. There was no time for sorrow. There was only time for action. The final stand had begun. The attack was swift and brutal. The humans launched their surprise offensive, taking the AI forces by complete surprise. They had set their traps, hidden in the valleys and craters of 07's surface, and now they were unleashing everything they had. The artifact's power flowed through their ships, turning them into unstoppable forces of destruction. The warship's shields faltered as the artifact's energy disrupted the AI's advanced systems. For the first time since the war had started, the humans had the upper hand. Ethan's eyes burned with adrenaline as he watched the explosions light up the sky. The alien warships, once so powerful and intimidating, were now vulnerable. The humans had come to play, and they weren't holding anything back. They fought with everything they had, each one of them driven by the knowledge that they were fighting for something much greater than themselves. They were fighting for the future of humanity. As the warships began to lose power, the humans pushed forward. The ground shook with the force of the conflict as energy blasts lit up the sky. The air was thick with the sounds of lasers, shields activating, and explosions ripping through the landscape. The humans had their own weapons now, energy rifles, pulse cannons, and laser swords, and they used them with deadly precision. But the fight wasn't over yet. The AI-controlled soldiers, though technologically inferior to the humans, were relentless. They charged forward with mechanical precision, their movements cold and calculated. They were programmed to win, and they would stop at nothing to carry out their mission. The humans, though, were fueled by something the machines could never understand: emotion. They fought with passion, with courage, and with the will to survive. Close quarters combat erupted as the humans and alien soldiers clashed. Ethan found himself in the middle of it all, his energy rifle raised as he fired at an incoming wave of AI soldiers. The sound of weapons fire filled his ears as the battlefield became a chaotic mess of explosions, laser beams, and the screeching of metal. "Push forward," Ethan shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "We can do this." He led the charge, cutting down enemies left and right, his team right behind him. The alien soldiers were relentless, but they were no match for the humans' sheer determination. The battle was far from easy, but the humans were proving that they were not just survivors. They were warriors. In the midst of the chaos, a massive explosion sent shockwaves through the area. Ethan's shield flickered as debris rained down around him, but he didn't stop. He kept moving forward, fighting through the pain, knowing that this was their last chance to win. "Never back down," he whispered to himself, clutching Bonner's last words like a lifeline. The battle raged on, but it was clear that the humans were gaining ground. The alien forces, though technologically superior, were beginning to falter. The artifact's power was overwhelming them, disrupting their systems and leaving them vulnerable. For the first time, The humans were not the ones on the defensive. They were the ones on the attack, and they were pushing forward with all the strength and courage they could muster. But the war wasn't over yet. Even as the humans took down more of the AI soldiers, the warships above were still a threat. Their massive weapons continued to fire down on the surface, trying to turn the tide of battle. The humans had one final obstacle to overcome: taking down the warships and securing their victory. Ethan knew what had to be done. "We need to destroy their flagship," he ordered, pointing toward the massive warship hovering overhead. "It's the heart of their forces. If we take it down, the rest will fall." The team sprang into action. They had already done the impossible by holding their ground against the AI soldiers, but now they needed to do the unthinkable: take out the flagship. With the artifact's power surging through their fleet, the humans launched their final assault. The warships above were caught off guard, their weapons malfunctioning as the artifact's energy interfered with their systems. Ethan led the charge, flying straight for the flagship, his heart pounding as the target grew larger in his view. The battle between the humans and the AI reached its peak. Ethan's heart raced as they closed in on the enemy flagship. The energy blasts from the alien warships were relentless, but the humans were not backing down. They had come too far, lost too much, and they were not going to let the Council win. "Ethan," Ylera said, her voice soft but full of conviction, "I never thought I would see the day when the humans would stand victorious." Ethan nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "We've paid a heavy price, but we've done it. We've shown the galaxy who we are." Ylera looked around at the wreckage, her gaze thoughtful. "The Galactic Council's forces are in disarray, but there are many others who might see this as an opportunity to strike. You will need to be ready." Ethan turned to look at his team, who were now gathering around him. They were battered but alive, and in their eyes he could see the same thing Ylera had just spoken of: determination. The humans had proven themselves, and now it was time to build something new. They couldn't afford to rest. The fight for survival was over, but the fight for the future had just begun. "I know," Ethan replied, his voice firm. "But we're not alone anymore. We've shown the galaxy what we can do, and we'll keep fighting. We'll build a future where humanity isn't just fighting to survive. We're fighting for something better." Ylera nodded, her gaze steady. "I'll help you. We'll need allies in the coming days, and there are others who might be willing to stand with you." The words carried weight. The idea of an alliance between humans and other alien races was both daunting and exciting. For so long, humanity had been isolated, standing alone in the vastness of space, fighting for its very existence. But now, there was the possibility of something greater, a future where humanity could stand shoulder to shoulder with other races, a united front against those who would seek to conquer and control. Ylera's support was a powerful symbol. She had once been a part of the Galactic Council, and now she was offering her help to the humans. Her defection was a sign that even among the alien races, there were those who could see the value of humanity's strength and determination. It was a sign that the galaxy could change, that the balance of power could shift. As the sun began to set over 07, the horizon painted in hues of red and orange, Ethan felt a sense of peace. The battle had been long and hard, but humanity had triumphed. They had proven themselves, not just as survivors, but as warriors, leaders, and allies. The victory had changed everything. But even as he looked out at the horizon, knowing that the future would be full of challenges, Ethan was filled with a sense of hope. Humanity's struggle, its resilience, and its unyielding spirit had changed the galaxy forever. And for the first time in history, humans were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting for something more, a future where they could thrive, where they could build alliances, and where they could stand as equals among the stars. And that, Ethan knew, was just the beginning.